So I wanted to do something a little different. This is election related, and I think it's a really good time to do that now before we get, really neck deep into election season. A lot of people look at the electorate all wrong. They don't really understand who votes, why they vote, what the voting pool really looks like. So I wanted to use a real high-tech version or a real high-tech way to show you a little bit more clearly about what exactly a voter is and where they're coming from. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to go right to the whiteboard here. And I want to show you, okay, so let's imagine that this whiteboard represents every U.S. citizen who is 18 or older, right? You can't vote until you're 18. Now, within that pool of people, you're going to have people that are actually registered to vote. So everybody outside of this circle is an adult who's 18 or over. Everybody inside of this circle is somebody who is actually they're actually going to vote. They're actually, part of the people that are going to vote. There's a significant portion of people outside of this that aren't going to vote. So let's say you are talking to a politician and they go, gee, golly gosh, I don't know if I want to talk about the Second Amendment. I'm afraid it's going to turn voters off. I'm afraid that there are people out there who will not vote for me once they find out that I like the Second Amendment. That doesn't really exist. That person doesn't exactly exist because they are talking about the electorate or voters as if it's this entire whiteboard and it's not just this circle of voters. Now let's talk about what makes up this circle of voters. Well, the circle of voters are all different kinds of voters. There's some subject, everybody cares about multiple subjects. Everybody cares a little bit about whatever, taxes and immigration or whatever the political issue du jour is. Everybody cares a little bit about it. But at the end of the day, there's one thing that gets somebody to vote for a candidate. There's one litmus test. You know what I mean? There's one issue. Maybe it's just the fact that they're a Republican or just the fact that they're a Democrat. Or maybe you're willing to overlook these two or three things that you disagree with a candidate on, but there's this one issue that you're just not willing to overlook, And sometimes it's a couple of things and then boom, it's the straw that breaks the camel's back. But the reality is that within this circle, there are a bunch of different subcircles. So let's make another circle here. Let's say that this circle, the green circle, are people that vote just on environmental issues, right? They're green voters. Now, why is that circle outside? Why is it overlapping the total circle? Because there are a number of green voters who just don't vote, So this section of voters represents just people that vote on environmental issues, right? And then you got another circle over here. These are people who just vote on LGBT issues, right? And again, you're going to have a whole section of LGBT voters that don't vote. They're outside of the circle. They might not even be registered. They don't show up to the polls or anything like that. And maybe you have another circle over here. These are pro-business, right? Their whole issue is taxes and how pro-business a section or an area is, right? And then over here you have, let's say these are the pro-Second Amendment voters, right? And again, even in the pro-Second Amendment community, we have a number of people that quite simply don't vote, okay? And then maybe you got another section over here. Maybe this is the immigration folks, right? So you have all these different sections of people. Again, outside of the big black circle are people who could vote. They're over the age of 18, they could register and vote. Or maybe they're over the age of 18 and can't vote because they're a felon or something like that. They've lost their right to vote. But they're American citizens. And then inside the black circle are people that actually vote. So what do? You're pro-Second Amendment. You're trying to get people to vote for your candidate. You're trying to get them to show up to the poll. What do? Well, if you talk to candidates, they're going to tell you that, hey, I'm worried that somebody who normally would vote for me won't vote for me because they found out that I'm pro-Second Amendment. And again, that person simply just doesn't exist. If that's their one thing that they're going to vote for, That's the straw, right, that broke the camel's back. They've already done the research. They're already going to ask the question, and if you say to them, well, I don't really care about the Second Amendment issues, I'm here to fill potholes or something like that, you're not going to get their vote. So the strategy really is, what you want to try to do is make this black circle even bigger than it already is. So the big advantage, if you do talk to a candidate and say, hey, here's how I feel about the Second Amendment, we want to try to get your vote, so that other people can vote for you. What you're actually doing is you're getting this black circle to be even bigger, right? So you're taking this black circle and you're expanding it so that people who normally wouldn't vote for a candidate because maybe they're, disenfranchised, they don't think that anybody stands for their Second Amendment rights, but because you're talking about the Second Amendment with this candidate, because you're pointing out that this candidate cares about your Second Amendment rights, then you're actually increasing the size of the number of people who vote. Okay, does that make sense? I hope it does. So all these folks are doing the same thing. All these different groups are doing the same thing. And the reality is there's probably 1,000 of these circles. I'm just giving a couple of different examples. And if it's, say, an off-election season, that black big circle might be smaller, if people don't really care about what's going on at the time, if there's not some big hot issue, that circle might be much, much smaller. If there's some kind of big issue happening, then that circle might get bigger. But the point is, it's never 100%. It's never 100% of the people who are over 18 who show up and vote. Now, that's an important issue because a lot of people look at it like, this message, applies to every single person, or every single person's the same. Or it's every single person, it's really just 50-50. Half believe in this, half don't believe in that. When that's just not the case. It's really much more of a bunch of circles within a circle. And if I wanted to be really accurate, what it would end up being is, like, for example, this green circle might overlap somewhat to these other circles, because like I said, everybody's got a little, believes in multiple things. But the reality is what we're really trying to do here. So what you're attempting to do is, if you talk to this guy in the purple circle and you tell him how important your blue circle is, he's never going to care because he's in the purple circle. What you want to try to do is expand your blue circle so that more of it fits inside the black circle. So you want to go find people who wouldn't vote, but because you're introducing them to a pro-Second Amendment candidate, they now become a voter. You're educating and motivating somebody to become a voter. You want to make the pie bigger. You're not fighting with the green or the pink or the red or the purple for a bigger slice of the same pie, and you're not dealing with 100% of the voters out there. You're actually dealing with people who are motivated by the Second Amendment and could be motivated to show up and vote if you just give them a reason. Ideally, we'd like to grow this blue circle so it's even bigger. So an even bigger percentage of voters out there care about the Second Amendment. And that's what off years are for. When there's no election going on, we were going to go out and gather people, sign them up to become members, add them to email lists, get them to a range and show them how to shoot, show them the importance of self-defense and the Second Amendment. And you want to make that blue circle even bigger. And then on election years, you want to move this big blue circle, this big blue Second Amendment circle, you want to move even more of it into the black circle so that they show up and vote, and then, of course, vote for the right person. So I think that better illustrates what we're trying to accomplish in election years and off election years, with the organization, our outreach programs, and then how you talk to potential voters, and what we're actually trying to accomplish. Off years, we're trying to expand this blue circle. Then election years, we're trying to get more of this blue circle into the black circle. So that's the electorate. That's really what's going on. That's what we're attempting to do when it comes to elections. I hope that makes a lot more sense. Hey, thanks for watching Gun Owners Radio. I hope you loved that clip. Don't forget to like, subscribe, comment, and follow us on social media. And check out our website at gunownersradio.com.